Hey, what's up everybody? This is Ken with Mid-Level Media, and today we are going to talk about 48 hours on 4K. So this is one of the recent Paramount releases on 4K, and I'm excited to talk about it here today. We're going to talk about the movie a little bit. This is a Walter Hill film. Came out in 1982, starring Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte. So if you don't know Walter Hill, I've actually watched a lot of his movies this year. Coincidentally, I didn't plan to watch a bunch of Walter Hill movies this year. It just turned out that a lot of the movies that I gravitated towards to watch for the first time this year were Walter Hill movies. So I did watch 48 Hours. I watched Red Heat, The Warriors I watched for the first time this year. Streets of Fire he directed as well. I actually forgot he directed that one until I was looking into his filmography. But he also did the Vestron video title Extreme Prejudice that came out earlier this year as well. And I have not got a chance to watch that. And I have not seen the sequel to this, Another 48 Hours. So Walter Hill has an incredible filmography. So he's done a lot of great movies. I'm excited to talk about this one here today. But before we get into it, guys, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We cover 4Ks and Blu-rays and all that kind of stuff on this channel every single day. So if you like that kind of stuff, I've got tons of reviews coming soon. I've been watching so many 4Ks. I've got a lot to do. Honestly, it's stressing me out. And I'm going to be putting, I don't know when this one came out on December the 6th. I don't know when this is going to drop, the review for this. But it'll drop sometime. Again, I got a lot of stuff on my plate to talk about. We got Black Christmas, we got Roadhouse, 4K Carrie, Highlander. December's a stacked month. But we're talking about 48 Hours here today. Subscribe to the channel, like this video if you haven't already. Liking the videos are very important. Definitely consider hitting the like button for sure, and also hit the subscribe button. And then comment down below. I want to know your thoughts on 48 Hours. Is this one of your favorite Eddie Murphy movies? Let me know in that comment section below. And yeah, let's go ahead and get into this. So we're going to talk about the movie a second. I do like talking about the actual film. Is that okay? Can I talk about the movie? But anyway, Nick Nolte, Eddie Murphy. So this is actually Eddie Murphy's first movie. I was looking, I didn't even know that. I was looking in his filmography and all the stuff that he was acting in, and this was the first movie that showed up. So I knew this was one of his earlier ones. He did this before Trading Places and Beverly Hills Cop, but I had no idea this was his very first movie because he's so good in it. It's just he's a natural. So that makes it all the more incredible. And I'll be honest, this is my favorites. I've said this before. This is my favorite Eddie Murphy buddy cop movie. I would put this over Beverly Hills Cop. Now, I said in a previous video that Beverly Hills Cop was overrated. Somebody called me out on that, saying that's my own personal opinion. I shouldn't say that. And I'm like, okay, you're right. I'll just say this. I prefer this movie over Beverly Hills Cop. I don't know. I just prefer the gritty filmmaking style. Walter Hill movies are just so grounded. They're so real and raw. They just have such a grit to them. This movie, it was made in the early 80s, but it honestly feels like a film that was made in the 70s. It has that 70s filmmaking style to it. And I really enjoy it for that. It's a comedy for sure, but it's not all fun and games. There's some very serious stuff and some very serious moments that happen in this movie. There's stuff that's scary in this movie that happens, and I enjoy it for that and it balances the tone very well. It knows when to do the comedy and it knows when to get serious. And I think it pulls all that stuff off very well. Walter Hill just has a knack for, switching and shifting tones in his movies. So I do enjoy it. Well, maybe except for Red Heat. He didn't handle the comedy as well in that movie. I do like Red Heat, but Arnold Schwarzenegger is not. He did not know how to harness Arnold Schwarzenegger's comedic abilities in Red Heat, I'll say that. But Nick Nolte as well. I love Nick Nolte. He's that classic, old, grizzled cop that's just been through it. And he ain't taking no shit from anybody, not even his beautiful girlfriend played by Annette O'Toole. Which I love that they don't show them a lot in this movie together, but I love their dynamic and relationship with each other in this movie. And I love Annette O'Toole. I've loved her since I was a kid, It 1990. It's one of my favorite horror movies, but she's in this movie very little. I wish she was in it more. Also, James Remar is in this movie, which if you don't know who James Remar is, he's in a ton of movies. He's in a ton of stuff. But he is what I would like to refer to as the second Raiden from Mortal Kombat Annihilation. So I do like James Remar, and I think he's scary in this movie. He's a complete psychopath. He's a great villain. in this film. So I really enjoy him as well. And just overall, like as a movie, it just works. Like every part of this movie works. Like Eddie Murphy, I feel like he's a little bit too jokey in the Beverly Hills Cop movies. Like those movies are a little bit too goofy. And like I said, this movie's a lot more grounded. And this is Eddie Murphy, like, again, it's very impressive. It's his first movie. It's Eddie Murphy, like, legitimately acting in the film while also, you know, having those big, like, standout moments of, like, just great charisma and personality and just really getting to showcase that. Like, there's a scene in a bar where he just gets, like, a full monologue, like, in front of a crowd, and it's terrific. And he's got some great one-liners in this movie as well, don't get me wrong. And him and Nick Nolte, I just think, have perfect chemistry with each other in this movie. So I am a big fan of 48 Hours. Again, I'm not gonna say that everybody should think it's better than Beverly Hills Cop. I know people don't like it when I say that. Everybody holds they're so precious with their Beverly Hills Cop. But I love 48 Hours. I think it's super underrated. Not enough people talk about this movie, and it is one of Eddie Murphy's best, in my opinion. So as a movie for a score, I'd probably give this movie a 4 out of 5. I really enjoy this movie. Just going into the plot a little bit, it's an interesting plot, and a lot of people would call this a buddy cop movie. I would as well. But some people might call me out for that and say, it's not a buddy cop movie, Ken, because Eddie Murphy's not a cop. And he's not a cop. You know, Nick Nolte has to get him out of prison. Like, that's the whole setup for the movie, to help him solve this case because he knows the criminals involved. So he breaks Eddie Murphy out of prison. Well, he doesn't break him, but he gets him out on parole for 48 hours only to help him catch this murderer. So he gets him out of jail for 48 hours, only 48 hours, to help him solve this crime. So yeah, just a really good story, really good setup. Now let's go ahead and get into what I know that you're all here for, and that is how's the 4K restoration, Ken? So just, you know, I bought the Blu-ray. You bought the Paramount Presents last year when it came out. This only came out a year and a half ago. Is it worth upgrading from this? Or maybe you have an older Blu-ray. I'm not exactly sure. Like, I'm pretty sure this had a Blu-ray before this did, but this was a 4K scan Blu-ray that came out back in 2021. I think this came out in like June or July of 2021. So is this worth upgrading? And initially, I will say, so this adds in, this is a native 4K restoration with Dolby Vision and HDR10. Now, initially when I popped this in, like the opening scene, which is like all outside, like all out in a field, it's a very like off opening to this movie. Like, I actually don't enjoy the opening because it's just not, it doesn't set the tone for what this movie actually is. Like, it's like gritty, like street crime style, like a crime movie style. So again, I know it's a setup to the movie. I just don't, like, when I get into it, I'm like, oh, what movie am I watching? Like, this doesn't look in line with the rest of the movie at all. But it looks bad. Like, it looked really bad, like super like grainy and just textured, and almost like DVD quality. But it definitely got better after that. But I will say, when I was watching it, I was like, this transfer is not blowing me away. And I was getting ready to say it was on par with the Planes, Trains, and Automobiles transfer, as far as just not being a really good upgrade, like not a significant upgrade. But I think it's important, guys, and this is an example. This is a lesson learned for me, and maybe you all should learn it as well. If you do the same thing, maybe probably not. I'm probably the only idiot that does this, but I feel like when we watch 4Ks, when we're jumping like from 4K to 4K, because everybody that watches this channel probably buys a lot of 4Ks, watches new ones every single week. When you're jumping from 4K to 4K, you're basing the transfer on the transfer that you watched before, like whatever movie you watched before, and you're comparing different movies and their transfers together, when really you should be comparing this 4K upgrade to the previous Blu-ray if you do have it. So when I was watching this, I was like, this doesn't, you know, look that impressive to me. When I was watching 48 Hours, the 4K didn't look that impressive to me. But then after I was done watching the 4K, I actually popped in the Blu-ray, and the colors are much more muted in this. It's a lot brighter. And it really just put things in perspective. And I was like, no, this 4K is actually pretty good. Like, this is actually a pretty good upgrade. Now, what I will say, again, it's not a mind-blowing upgrade. And if you're not a fan of grain, you're probably not going to be a fan of this. It is pretty grain heavy throughout the movie, like not just the beginning, but like just throughout the whole movie. I don't mind it as much because I watch this movie, it really gives me that kind of 70s filmmaking vibe. And I think that the more grainy texture and look actually lends itself a lot better to a Walter Hill film. Like, this movie is very gritty. It is very grimy. It's down and dirty. It's rough. So it makes sense that the transfer should be grain heavy. It adds to the actual feel of the film itself. So I don't mind the grain here, but when you're getting into the HDR, like the HDR is where this movie really shines. The colors, much more rich in this one, much more bold. Like when you're looking at those facial tones and complexions of Eddie Murphy, Nick Nolte, and just all the other characters, the colors of their suits, like it's just much more vibrant and richer, like compared to Blu-ray. Like I said, the Blu-ray, like the colors, you don't realize this until you put in that past Blu-ray, but they're so muted, and it almost just feels like you're looking at a picture. Like you're looking at a picture that's had like water dripped on it. It's been smudged over. When you're watching a 4K, it just feels like something that was just put together, that was just painted. It's just much more natural. It's that natural look and feel of what the filmmaker intended when they first made the movie. And the depth is there as well. There's such depth. You feel the weight of it is how I like to describe it. So definitely greater detail as well. Like it's not, like I said, it's very grain heavy. It's not the most clear 4K transfer, but there's definitely some great moments of clarity, in particular the facial detail when they do some of those close-up images of Eddie Murphy, Nick Nolte, some of the other characters as well. There's certain scenes in this movie that really do look gorgeous and really pop with that 4K and that HDR. The club scenes, like all the scenes, like a lot of this movie is at night. It's in like a club setting, club atmosphere. All those scenes with the neon lights and stuff, all that stuff looks spectacular. The last 20 minutes though, like really stood out to me. I don't know. It's almost like they kind of wiped it down a little bit. They cleaned it up. They made it the most clear in the last 20 minutes because all that stuff in the alleyway and the shootout and when they're chasing each other, again, not trying to get too spoilery here, so I won't give any context to that. But there's like a street chase shootout scene at the end in some alleyways, and all that stuff looked great. Like it's in night, and there you have like the smoke from the streets coming in from the cars, and you have all the lights, the neon lights. All that stuff looks spectacular. I did, at the end of the day, again, it's grain heavy. It's not the most clear 4K, but I think the HDR, the Dolby Vision, does add a lot to this movie in terms of coloring and just overall like the depth, the contrast level, the black levels, like all of that stuff just really shines through this 4K transfer. So I actually think this is a pretty, I don't want to say great because you'll expect greatness, and I've got other great 4Ks to talk about this week that I'm super excited to talk about, but I will say this is a really solid upgrade. This is a really solid upgrade, but also I completely understand if you have this Blu-ray, again, this is not a mind-blowing transfer, and you're happy with this Blu-ray, it looks better on the 4K. It does look better. You're going to get greater detail in the colors. You're going to get more vibrancy. You're going to get a just richer look, and feel in that 4K. But the Blu-ray is fine. The Blu-ray looks good. So at the end of the day, the 4K it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Now let's get into the actual sound. This is a DTS 5.1 master audio, but everything sounded fantastic. The sound was awesome. Like I said, it doesn't have Dolby Atmos, but I don't think a movie like this really needs Dolby Atmos. Now there is some really like nice street shootouts and action sequences in this movie. Some shootouts, like in particular, like the one shootout in the actual like hotel is really just, like I said, raw. Like this movie has such a grit to it, just in every sense of the word. But I think that the gunplay and the shots and stuff like that, all that stuff sounds great with the 5.1 sound. It sounded good to me. I don't think it needed that Dolby Atmos setup. So 5.1 was just good enough for me. I thought it sounded fantastic. Now getting into the actual packaging, nice slip right here. I'll do a little bit of an unboxing. You got Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy on the back. And it's a nice slip. Like I really like the art. I like the artwork on the slip of this like much better than the Paramount Presents, like I'll be honest. And we'll look at the classic poster artwork because I don't remember what that was. Yeah, that classic poster of 48 Hours, again, it's classic 80s. Again, this almost reminds me of a 70s movie, like in every sense. Like even the poster looks 70s as well. But I definitely like the look of this slip versus this one for sure. So I think it's a nice slipcover. It's got a nice little like glossy finish, and I like the 4K banner at the top. And you do have the 40th anniversary, you know, banner up there as well. So I think that's a nice touch. Getting into the special features. Now, it did say on Bluray.com that there was a new feature in this 4K, a new interview with Walter Hill. That is not true, because this is not new to the 4K. That special feature, that new interview with Walter Hill, is not new to this 4K, and it says that on Bluray.com. That interview was present in this Paramount Presents release. So they ported over all the special features from this Paramount Presents release to this Paramount 4K. So that was at least nice that they did the exclusive Paramount Presents features and ported them over to just the regular Paramount 4K. But yeah, nothing new. But again, at least we got something new recently for this film. But overall, guys, I think this is a very solid upgrade. Now, you can get this 4K for $25.99 currently. And I don't know if I can recommend it at that price, but I think if it drops down to like $17.99, $18.99, I think that's worth an upgrade, especially if you really love this movie. Now, another thing to point out is you can actually get the 2-film set that has both the movies, 48 Hours and another 48 Hours in 4K, for $33.99 right now at Best Buy and on Amazon. So if you want to go that cheaper option, you can actually get both films for about $17 a piece. So I think that is definitely worth it. Again, I haven't seen the second film yet. I'm hoping to review that soon as well. I've heard from some people it's not as good as the first one, so I'm not going to get my hopes up too high for that one, but I do plan to review that one as well in the future. But thank you all so much for watching my review of 48 Hours on 4K. Hope you enjoyed it. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit the like button. Comment down below your thoughts on 48 Hours in this 4K as well. If you're going to purchase it based on my recommendation, turn on the bell notifications for all future videos and follow me on all my social media accounts. Those links are down below in the description, and we'll see you next time.